A most extraordinary story in the Independent today about Andrew Scott, who's performing Hamlet. And he'd got to the speech in the middle of the play, right in the middle of the play, to be or not to be, except in a production that I saw, a really good production that I saw in Moscow a couple of years ago, where that speech was put into the final act, which seemed to work. I must say, I went along with a lady who seemed to think I wouldn't understand any of it, and she wanted to translate. I was horrified. I've directed Hamlet a couple of times, and I sort of know it. And I didn't think there'd be any problem with understanding it in Russian, and there wasn't. It was very understandable, and thankfully, there wasn't any room in the auditorium, and I had to sit on a step, and she was sitting on a step somewhere else, so we were nowhere near each other, and so she wasn't able to translate. But the to be or not to be speech normally occurs right in the middle of the play, and it's sort of non-dramatic. It doesn't do anything. And there's one idea that Hamlet asks to be or not to be, and then later on says let be. So he has made a decision, ironically, because he then finds himself getting killed. But Andrew Scott found that somebody was on his laptop during that speech, and he paused, slightly longer than a dramatic pause, and still the person continued thrashing away on his laptop. Or maybe he was watching tractor porn. I don't really know. What would you be doing on a laptop in the middle of a play? It does seem bizarre. I mean, there are people, as Simon Bailey tweeted at some point during his run in Moulin Rouge, that don't take photographs of us or don't record the show because we're going to see you. Absolutely. It is extraordinary when you're standing on stage, you're looking out at the audience. There's some actors say, oh, you can't see anything, it's just a blur. Rubbish. You see everybody. And you notice people doing strange things. Kevin Spacey and James McAvoy were annoyed about people taking texts or mobile phones ringing in their performances. And I suppose that's irritating. It's extraordinarily impolite. I do wonder slightly whether or not it's impolite to go to sleep in a show, or indeed even in the cinema. I'm a dreadful sleeper when it comes to things that don't quite get my attention. Have I slept in theatre performances? Not often, I think, but some have almost driven me into another world. And it's not really the quality of the performer. It's more to do with with everything, with that sort of build up beforehand, so that when you finally get into the seat and the show begins, it all seems a bit of a letdown if it's not quite there. Sometimes in a matinee, which is sadly all one can go and see these days, with the need to negotiate a trip back up north. Sometimes in a matinee there isn't quite the energy that one would expect in an evening performance. And it sometimes shows, and yeah, I suppose occasionally one closes one's eyes. But is that as offensive as taking a phone call or taking a text or ruminating on the laptop? I'm not really quite sure. There's a point at which I would say, as somebody who's performed on stage as well, there's a point at which I would say if somebody has actually got their laptop out, you're not really engaging them, are you? And maybe it's your fault. But that is rather cruel of me, isn't it? I think one should, if one's not engaged, one should sneak out, frankly. I think one should sneak out if one doesn't like it. Because there's that relationship between the audience and the actor, and the audience plays a part. The audience has to be engaged. The audience is urging the actor on. And a good show engages the audience, and the actors, I can tell you, notice. You feel the difference with an engaged house. And you certainly feel it when the audience is not engaged. And when the audience is switched off, in the same way as I think you feel it if you're a teacher and you've got a class of students who sort of are there not because they want to be. And there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to turn it round. You might as well get your laptop out and start doing something else.